Welcome, ladies. This is Empowered Ease, the podcast where we challenge the patriarchy by empowering women to take control of their health, mind, body, and spirit. My name is Jen Olinger. I'm a holistic coach, founder of the Moonflower Collective, and a critical care nurse. Join me each week as I interview healers, health practitioners, and women like you while they share their inspiring stories and their unique approaches to women's health and empowerment. So, like and subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow along as we learn to step into our power and embrace a life of ease. Hello and welcome to Empowered Ease. Our guest today is Amanda Farq. She is a registered nurse, a wellness warrior, and a nervous system educator. Welcome, Amanda.
Hello. Thanks for having me on today.
I'm so happy you're here. So tell me a little bit about what a registered nurse, wellness warrior, and nervous system educator is.
So it's just kind of a broad title I use. I'm a registered nurse by profession. So I've been a registered nurse for about 9 years, working in various fields from medical, surgical, rural emerge. I do travel nursing around Canada. And then before I became a registered nurse, I was really into like holistic healing. I was really into, I wanted to become a yoga instructor when I was younger. And then I became a nurse, and a lot of that kind of fell by the wayside as it does when you do 4 years of university and you start this career, and that becomes kind of what your main focus is. And then through being a nurse and through my own health issues and my own traumas and seeing that of my friends and coworkers, I kind of went back to my roots of like, remember when my younger self wanted to be a yoga instructor? And so 2 years ago, I became a yoga instructor, which was super exciting and fulfilled that dream. And then through some of my own, um, yeah, just things that I was going through in my life, I was trying a lot of different things to help myself heal, and nothing was really hitting the mark until I started diving into somatic work, somatic exercises, and nervous system regulation. And I'm like, wow, this is really doing it for me. And it was getting healing pieces and bringing up pieces that were so deep down I barely knew they still existed, but they were adding to a lot of my chronic health challenges that I was having. So there's kind of a long answer about that big title there of what that is.
Yeah, I can't wait to
Yeah.
dig in and learn more. I have some parallels in my story, but first of all, I did not know you were in Canada, which I'm so excited about. Where are you in Canada?
I'm in British Columbia.
Okay, so I just did. I don't know if you know her. You probably, I mean, Canada's a huge place, right? But her name's Lillian DeFree, and she is like a big advocate for nurses in Canada and for nurse burnout. And she's been on the podcast, so we're gonna have to. The three of us are gonna have to talk one day. So I'm so excited about that. Okay, so first of all, I love that I parallel you in that like when I started nursing school, I was really into holistic health, and I wanted to like the trauma aspect, the acute care medicine is why I went into it, because I was like, I can do both. I was in a yoga teacher program while I went to nursing school, but I dropped it. I couldn't do both. So it went away, got totally burnt out, had a bunch of physical problems, and then found a coaching program I was always doing yoga and mindfulness on my own, but really getting really burnt out is what made me jumpstart back into like, hey, that was the healthiest I was in my life. That was the best I felt mentally. And I also love that you were touching on like nervous system, because I think for nurses, especially nurses working bedside right now, like nervous system dysregulation, just alone with the environment, taking all the other factors that definitely contribute out, the environment alone is so difficult on your nervous system. So I cannot wait to hear more about this. Tell me a little bit about, well, I guess your story, like what kind of health struggles were you going through?
There's been a lot down the line, which is weird to admit because I feel like I'm a very healthy person.
I can
So
relate to that. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel, like even though I wasn't a yoga instructor, I was always doing yoga. I always had a yoga practice. I was always like trying to be physically active. I live an active lifestyle, but then, in nursing school, I got diagnosed with endometriosis, sciatica, like all this stuff that I now know is like stagnation of sitting and learning and stress. It's like all these health issues, I feel, for myself and for a lot of people, can be stemmed back to stress. It's like a stress response in the body that we've ignored that all of a sudden is a big catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there was that happened. And then between my children, I had a baby at 24 weeks, and he didn't survive, unfortunately, which was pretty devastating. And just going through the healing process of that really, really got me into the nervous system work, because I was running, I was doing all the things I was supposed to be doing, I was doing talk therapy, and like I'd feel like I was better, but I was still like holding this extra weight. I had this huge like, my posture was bad, and then I got into this kind of stuff, and it's like, oh, this is deep. This is
Mm-hmm.
really deep to heal from this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, when I start talking about the health challenges I have, I am just shaking my head, because I'm like, as if as a healthy person, I feel this. And then 3 years ago, I went through a lot of stress, and got displaced from my job, and I lost my best friend to cancer. And 2 months later, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I had like all these symptoms of just like bleeding and couldn't eat and bloated and all this. It's just horrible. And I'm like, okay, something needs to change here. Like this is stress, like all the other things I talked about. Like, I healed myself from the sciatica and the endometriosis, like by relieving stress in my life. Like, like with doing all the yoga and doing this, and like, or, nursing school is done. So it's like, okay, that stress is over, and I'm not being stagnant. So it moves on. And then with the ulcerative colitis, it's been a lot more healing and getting to the root of it. And the somatic exercises is really what has helped me with that. Is just, I tried the talk therapy, and that was good, but it's just like I mentioned before, it just sits so deep. And the thing with trauma and tension that sometimes we forget, or it's not on our radar, is we hold that in our body. Like our body remembers what we go through. So we can think that we've talked it through, and we need all these modalities, right, to help us heal, but it's like sometimes that's just not enough. We need to listen to our body, and we need to let our body release that trauma and tension in ways that are more intuitive. So our culture has really stopped us from releasing tension and trauma through like shaking and crying and all these ways. And that's where somatic exercises come in. They're gentle movements that help you guide these tension releases through your body.
I love that. I recently
Yeah.
working with like a trauma therapist, and she said something to me that resonated that I've thought of while you were talking. And it was like, sometimes there are things that happen that you don't have words for, like, or even they happen to you at an age where you don't have words yet.
Yeah.
Or when you get older, it's just not words to process what happened. And so you can't like talk that out. That's not like,
Yeah.
because talk therapy,
Yeah.
it worked for me on some levels. I got great tips, but I didn't heal.
Yeah.
And I thought that for me, that was just such a powerful thought. Cause I thought, oh yeah, like, I don't know why that didn't occur to me before, but that's so true. Things happen
Yeah.
before we have words to put to them. And then also things
Yeah.
happen so complicated and complex, and like dualities present, and
Yeah.
we don't have words to give them. So the only thing we can do is reprogram our nervous system's response to it.
Absolutely. And let ourselves move through that trauma response in like a safe and trusting way, like, so the trauma response to be finished, you need to have that trauma response. You need like trembling or yawning, crying, deep breathing, like the animalistic way. Like we see this in animals, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
animals will shake after they're scared. You might see your dog do it with thunder
Mm-hmm.
or fireworks. They shake. And this is them releasing that trauma response. And us as humans, we've been conditioned in our culture that something traumatic happens, you're not just gonna, shake. Like you might if something's big, and then maybe that person's probably gonna work through it a lot quicker. But a lot of times we kind of, okay, suck it up, grin, bear it. Nope, I'm all good. moving
Put it in
forward.
that little closet.
Put it away. I'll deal with this later. Or we've also been conditioned to think like this isn't a big deal. What I'm going through is not a big deal. Where it is, like your body is going to hold that unless you give it space and time to move through it and
Mhm.
process it physically. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful. It's very powerful. So tell me, like, I saw you specifically work with nurses, which I know we mentioned a little bit before this, but nurses is a hard population to work with because sometimes we're not the first to jump to help ourselves.
We're usually not the first to jump to help ourselves. But I feel like there's a shift happening. I feel like there's a shift in nurses realizing what we do go through. And again, it's a cultural perception within the nursing culture that what we go through is normal, that everything we deal with on a daily basis is normal. You know, like hearing call bells for 12 hours is normal. Dealing with a patient code and then packing that up and moving to the next room is normal. Like we just have a totally messed up way of thinking of what normal is.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's not, you know, and sometimes I think nurses will realize that if they're, you know, talking maybe to their partner about something and then they, you know, kind of look at you, it's what? That's not normal. That's not a normal experience. And we go through that every day. You know, we go to work and
Mm-hmm.
we go through that, and we're seeing a lot of nurses acknowledge that they're burnt out, you know, having that pre-shift anxiety, post-shift anxiety, but maybe not quite knowing what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
um, so that's why I really wanted to focus in on nurses. Like as a nurse, I see it, and I
Mm-hmm.
see it, you know, on the job. And then I see it also in the chronic health challenges that the nursing population has, you know, like the nurses that it's like, oh, they always have a sore back. Oh, their shoulders are always so, or I've got this really weird leg thing going on. I don't know what it's from. And it's like, or digestive issues or like menstrual issues, like all these issues that nurses are having that probably can be related back to chronic stress and the tensions and traumas that we hold from our job and then from like the periphery of our life, because nursing is also a very triggering it's a very triggering profession. You know, like when I went through the loss of my son, it's like, and then I had some time off work, but then I go back to the hospital and it's like, this is where this happened, and this is just so it's a lot, right? It's a lot. So when people are dealing with, whether they're dealing with a loss of a friend, a parent, a grandparent, it's like, or their own traumas or their children, it's like then you're going to go back and usually work in that exact same hospital. Like it is, it's a total, yeah,
Yeah.
mind fuck,
Yeah.
I'd call it. I don't know, sorry if I'm allowed, but
No,
it's
it
like
is. It
it's
is. It
totally
totally
like
is.
it's
Yeah.
it's hard because now you're carrying your own weight and your own trauma while trying to look after everybody else and hold it together. And so much in nursing is like we're trying to hold it together. And a lot of times we deal with that by like dark humor and like the weird sense of humor we have as nurses, which is
Yeah.
fine. Like I'm here for that if you also have healthy coping strategies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's so intense. And it's something like if you don't, like, I personally, one of my big struggles was finding a community of people that understood because I don't have healthcare in my family. And so to come home and talk to people, they're just like, they didn't get it at all.
yeah,
So it's so important to like work with someone like you who, like, you know, exactly what the
yeah,
struggles are and how difficult it can be.
yeah. And I think that's why it's important too for a nurse to be doing this work, you know, like nurses helping nurses, I think is really important because
Mhm.
as much as other health modalities and other healthcare practitioners, they'll know that nursing is hard for sure, but just to know that struggle of being deep in it for 12 hours and it's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And I don't know about Canada because I feel like overall you're probably probably going to get people to hate on me, but yours are, overall you have a healthier population than we do. But from working in all over the United States in all kinds of ICUs and on being floated as a travel nurse to every floor as well,
Yeah.
chronic illnesses and mental health are tied together.
Yeah.
And I would say that maybe mental health wasn't the root of it for a lot of people. For some people, I would say it definitely is. And I would say that the mental health aspect is definitely what makes a lot of it worse. And for me, that was the like, whatever you call it, like your rock bottom or whatever, the moment that I thought like my health issues that I was having were like, a lot of cardiac issues. What made me think, like, if I don't do something about it, I'm going to end up one of these patients. And to me, that was
Yeah.
like worst case scenario ever. That was enough to like shake me out of it. Like, I'm not gonna end my life in this like work that I do every day.
Yeah.
So such
And
powerful stuff.
it is. It's like you can see, and with the ulcerative colitis for me was I'm not going to say it's the biggest thing, but that would be the biggest chronic health issue because it's like it's really big and it has the ability to progress. So same as you're talking with the cardiac stuff, it's like I'm like if I don't change something and if I don't get ahead of this, I'm already behind it. If I don't get ahead of this, I am going to end up in the
Mhm.
hospital. I'm going to end up, and that's not where I'm going to be. Like,
Mhm.
and then that's another thing that the disconnect with um, healthcare and the medical world is that I remember after I got my colonoscopy, because this is the other thing with nurses. I'm going to circle back to this because how you were talking about how nurses ignore their health.
It's
So
true.
I was having all these issues with my bowels, and I was too much information here, but like I was bleeding every time I
We're
went to the
nurses,
bathroom.
yeah.
I was bloated. Like it was awful. But you know when I went to the doctor? Because I hurt my knees 2 months earlier. So I
Which was
was talking
making
to my
work
doctor.
hard.
Yeah, like my knees were really sore because I had a skiing accident with my daughter. And I was like, I think I need, like, just wondering what I do. And I was like, there's this other thing that I just want to mention just to see if you think it's a big deal or not. And he's like, Amanda, like what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah. And he was pretty pissed at me. And I hadn't told anybody about these symptoms. My husband was mad at me because it was like immediate blood work, in for a CT, and in for a colonoscopy within like the week. It
Yeah.
was, and I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I was ignoring my own health. And yeah, and that's what we do as nurses. I think we do that as a lot of people. But anyway, but
Moms,
yes,
women, yeah.
moms, yeah. And then circling back to after my colonoscopy, I said something to the doctor in my haze there. I was like, okay, like just diet, stress. Like I've been going through a lot. And he's like, nope, nothing to do with that, nothing to do with stress. Here's your prescription. It's like, so when I came out of it, I was
Your
kind of
gut
like,
is like directly related to stress.
yeah. And I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna have to take matters into my own hands here. And it was hard, and it's been hard, It's like, how can I release the stress that I was going through? But that was 3 years ago now, and I mean, they'd say I'm in remission, but it's like I feel like I've healed myself from it. And but it's just crazy, that
Beautiful.
disconnect of like, no, this has nothing to do with stress. This has nothing to do with your lifestyle. It's like everything has to do with this. Like, how can we be telling patients this? Like, how can we be like, I spreading this myth that it's not all connected, like that nothing is connected. It's like it is all connected, and we need to work together. Like, because I'm so happy that I got those diagnostics to know, like, okay, this is what we're dealing with. This can help lead me on like my healing journey a bit more. But like
And
to
there's
say that
resources
it's
available that for you to dive into your own health, since no one in the system wanted to educate you about it.
totally, so it's like, but it'd be just be so nice if like the interconnectedness of like allopathic medicine and complementary medicine would be like, okay, yeah, here's a prescription to help you get started on your healing, and then here's also a bunch of other resources or all, like practitioners you should be seeing as well to discuss your stress and your, like in a perfect world,
Mhm.
here's my perfect, like the two are going to collide, and it's,
Right. You
but
treat the
yeah,
human like the nursing model is, which is
yeah,
why nurses are amazing. Yeah, I
yeah.
totally agree. It's crazy. Yeah, I got a lot of medications thrown at me as well. And I was like, not what I was looking for.
Yeah,
Wanted to look on how to
yeah,
make it better, not how to live with it. But thank you.
I, exactly, right. And then it's like,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So how do you start with nurses when you like how do you work with them? How do you help them start to heal?
So I'm just kind of bringing up my practice here. So gotten all these steps in place, and I'm just kind of building it up right now. So I've worked with nurses like in person with workshops, and so
Mhm.
I brought that workshop online. It's called the Nurses Force Field Workshop.
Mhm.
And the great thing about my workshop too is you earn 2 nursing CEUs for it. So
Ooh.
it's been accredited through debriefing the front lines. So you can get 2 nursing CEUs, and then the course I'm creating is the 30-day chronic stress and trauma release course, like
Mhm.
specifically for nurses. But it would work. I mean, this is going to work for anybody who's feeling like they need this. But my content is specific to nurses, even though other people could probably apply it into their other women could probably apply it into their lives. But with this course, it's going to be a 30-day course, 15 minutes a day of somatic exercises to help work through that trauma and tension for nurses. So my whole big thing with nurses is I want to make something easy, accessible, and simple for them to do. And when I say easy and simple, that term is just so broad at first because before we've healed from our trauma and tension, nothing in healing seems easy. Nothing seems simple. It all just seems so like, where do I start? How do I do this? So I want to just package something up nicely for nurses to be like, hey, you get home from your shift or when you get up in the morning, just click this and I will show you 15 minutes, maximum 15 minutes, what you can do today to regulate your nervous system. Um, so that's going to be my offering that I'm hoping I can bring to fruition by April, and that's actually going to be 10 CEUs for that course as well. So that's something I'm very excited about. Is
That's
like
awesome. I love that you
maybe
put the CEU in there. It's
yeah
so smart of you too to
yeah
get nurses there too.
yes, like, and
Like,
that's kind of what, it's like, how do you get nurses who don't want to, not necessarily don't want to, but maybe feel like they need to do something, but don't really want that push or like don't want to like, spend their money on that. They'd rather spend their money on this. It's like, if you've been thinking about needing a little bit of extra help in regulating your nervous system, a little extra help because you've been overly stressed out, it's like, here it is. And you get nursing CEUs for it. Like,
that
so I'm
is so
very,
cool.
very excited about that
Do you know, are those
process.
just
Yeah.
Canadian CEUs or those
No,
transferred?
no, they're American. So it's done through,
Really?
yeah. So
That is
because
amazing.
in Canada, we don't necessarily like we need continued education, but not in the same model as the States.
I was like, it's different
So
state to state. Not all states require it, but most do.
yeah, and so yeah, I did it through debriefing the front lines. Tara, the CEU nurse, she is getting that accredited. So she's gone through that all. And so it's for the US,
That is
accredited in
so
the US.
cool.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
met Amanda because I did one of your videos and wrote you a testimonial, and I felt
Yes.
very calm afterwards. I had put it off and put it
Nice.
off, and I was going to do it, and then I finally did it, and I was like, whoa, like I feel good. And I'm a big like, if you've listened to any of my stuff, I advocate a lot for breath work because I do it every single day before I go in the ICU in my car, and if I don't do it, it's a bad day because
Yeah.
I have mood it's a stressful job that I've done. So I have to regulate how I walk in there
Yeah.
every day. Breathwork's been a big tool for me because it is a direct acting on your nervous system, your vagus nerve. But this
Yeah.
is similar. And I'm neurodivergent. And as I get older and all the perimenopause like hormones hit me, I get to discover all these great things about myself. But one of the things that I'm learning, which is involved in somatics so much, which is one of the reasons I'm so interested in it, is the balancing of the sides of the brain, which somatics does that. It's the tactile and it is balancing. So tell me a little bit more about that if you can.
Yeah, like the bilateral simulation.
Yes.
Yeah, so everything you just said, totally. The bilateral simulation, it helps like reprogram the brain. It helps you get more in tune with your body to help process those emotions and let them go. And just it's about reprogramming those like neural pathways in the brain and really getting in tune with your body without having to put words on what is actually going on.
I love it. I love it. It's so helpful because as nurses, we're big stuffers, right? Like we have to be. You could not do your job if you had to feel your feels in the moment every time.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't
Yeah.
work. So we have to be able to push things away. But then taking that back out and unloading that suitcase is not something all of us know how to do. I mean, I remember when I was
No.
first a nurse, like I'm a crier now, I'll cry at anything. But when I was younger in my 20s, that was not something. I was not a crier. And I would find myself like making myself watch like sad stuff or like because I could feel it. I could feel it building. Like I need to cry. I need to like mourn, like kind of grieve all this crazy,
Yeah.
crazy stuff I'm seeing. And so I'd have to trick myself into doing it sometimes. So I love that
Yeah.
this is just like a gentle way to process as you're going. So do
Totally.
you
And then
recommend this as like a daily practice for people?
I do, and so with the 30-day course that I'm creating, it's like it's a lead up, and then there's actually a trauma release on the 18th, 20th day of the course. So it's like a lot of gentle movement to open up, release tension, open up these pathways, so that when the actual trauma release day comes, which you would never just throw. So the videos I share don't share the actual trauma release movements because they can be really intense if you haven't really um, gotten your body ready for it. And that's where we really see people doing the shaking, like uncontrollably shaking, crying, and really working through the emotions. But the somatic movements I do recommend as a daily practice. Like you're saying that you do your breath work before work. I always do some somatic movements in the either in the morning before I go or at night when I get home. I find them to be really helpful before I try to go into my normal life with my family. I try to set up, and it doesn't need to be 15 minutes, just something to, if you're doing some knee sways or just some sort of movement that like grounds you into like being here now, into your body. A lot of somatics is about noticing how you're feeling without judgment. So, it's like you can do these movements and you can all of a sudden notice that like, oh yeah, my hips are tight. Oh yeah, no, I'm getting a lot of tightness in my chest and maybe anxiety or something when I'm doing this. But just like noticing that and breathing and continuing to do these movements can help you kind of work through it and release these things. So, yeah, just noticing your body and trusting your body through the process.
So these are videos people can do like at home.
Yep.
So they don't, do you work with people one-on-one too where you are, or is all of your stuff online?
All the stuff's online now. I've done a couple workshops in person, but I've moved to online now, just to reach a broader base of people and just to make it more accessible as I uh, so yeah, most of my stuff's online. So the workshop, the force field workshop is live and in person. So when I do the workshop, it's an hour and a half of I limit it to 10 people. So it's pretty intimate group and it's focused on like peer connection with other nurses because like we talked about before, we really know what each other are going through on like a really deeper level of how crazy the job can be. And so we
Mhm.
talk about nursing, we talk about trauma. I tell people the different effects of trauma on the body. We do some somatic exercises and then talk about co regulation a lot in that workshop and just how to protect your own energy and try to help that kind of radiate out to the rest of the floor. So that workshop is um, online and live. And then the course that'll hopefully be coming out in April is going to be pace yourself, do at your own pace, pre-recorded.
So do you have videos or
Yeah.
anything on YouTube that if anyone wanted to try it out, they could access or?
So I just right now have the video that I shared with you, and then on my Instagram, every once in a while, if I I'll post something that says like comment balance and I'll send the video. All my videos on YouTube right now are just link access only.
Mhm.
But if you comment on one of those ones that says that, then I'll send a link over
Mm.
to watch that
Mm.
video. And then on my Instagram, which is zen.nurse, um, I share a lot of tips on regulating your nervous system, on doing somatic exercises. I do a lot of them at work when I'm on break. So, like stockroom sessions or like stowing away to the bathroom for like 2 minutes to just do some sort of grounding exercise, whether it's like a butterfly hug and just like disconnecting from the floor for a minute or two, like the biggest thing I want people to know with the somatic exercises is like ideally, yes, you're going to be at home in an environment that you find safe, lying down and cozy, but these can also be done anywhere. Like I find myself on my shift, I will even going outside for a walk on my break, instead of sitting doom scrolling gossiping with everybody else, like all these things, like peer connection, super important too, in a healthy way. But it's also good, like I find on my breaks at work, to disconnect and give myself some space to
Mhm.
just be, and disconnect from the floor. So I share a lot of those tips on my Instagram, just like what to do when you're at work, like what to do in a stressful situation, how to decompress when you are kind of like in the heat of it. Like obviously you got to finish with your tasks and make sure there's patient safety and everything, but there's still things you can do if you need to stow away for 2 minutes on your own. That's going to make you feel better in yourself, going to make you a better team member, going to make you a better nurse. So
I
yeah.
like that about your videos. I noticed that I was like, man, I never even thought about doing that kind of stuff at work. Cause I like will stow away and do a little breath work sometimes if I'm having like
Yeah.
a oh my God. Because that
Yeah.
happens way too much. And so I'll stow away and do like a little breath work. But the physical movements for me, it was something that like I just had a barrier there and I didn't know until I saw your videos. I was like, oh man, you could totally do like more physical things here. I just never even considered it till I saw your videos. So I
Totally.
love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see here. If people want to get started in somatics, they hear this and they're like, I definitely need this. Where would you recommend they start?
Um, I think I'd recommend, um, like you mean kind of like what kind of practice they should kind of start with, or
Yeah,
what?
like if they're
Yeah.
like, this sounds good to me, but I don't know where to even go about this. Like, but I
I
feel like
think on
somatics would help me.
I think on a very basic level, like what I could tell you right now, if I was like, if you were to do one thing today that could help you like start in this somatics healing kind of journey, start noticing what is going on in your body. Start noticing without judgment and listening to your body.
Mhm.
Because that's a huge thing, is that, we can do all the healing in the world. We can do all the gross things in the world. We can go to the classes, we can go to the healers. But if we're not listening to our body and knowing and understanding that we can find these tools within ourselves to try, like heal our body and um, regulate our nervous system like within ourselves, then it's all kind of falls by the wayside. We need to
Mhm.
listen to our bodies. We need to understand that we can trust our bodies to tell us
Mhm.
when things are starting to happen before they become these catastrophic health challenges, right? Like um, leading up to some of my things, it's like, yeah, I was feeling stressed. Yeah, I had knots in my tummy. Yeah, like there was things that could have been done sooner if I had have listened to my body. And I think if
Mhm.
people wanted to do something today, right now, tune into your body and take time to listen to your body.
I love that. I love that because I always
Mhm.
say like with burnout, a lot of it's like one of two things happening. A lot of times, it's like we know what's going on and we're avoiding it. Like we can hear it, but we're like just avoiding it, pushing it away, or we're so disconnected from our bodies that we don't even recognize the signals that it's screaming at us, and so we have to slow down and learn to listen. Um,
Absolutely. And that slow down piece too, it's like noticing how you're moving through life. Like if you're moving through life, like, oh, gotta go, gotta rush, hurry up, let's go, let's go, let's go. It's like, again, all the amount of nervous system healing isn't going to help if you don't start like doing things at a regular pace. Like if you have that sense of urgency in absolutely everything you're doing,
mhm.
that that's not gonna, that's not good. That's
Which is
bringing up
like, that's kind of the
anxiety and
flow
bringing
of
up burnout.
nursing, though, right?
Yeah.
That's like the
Yeah.
flow of the job we do. So we get stuck.
Yeah.
And I think women in general, because we take on a lot, if that's, in our personal lives as well as moms and as like this hustle culture that's going around to be everything, do everything all at once. There's
Yeah.
this habit that we have where I like to think of it as like walking on your tippy toes. Like, you're just like grasping, we're constantly trying to get somewhere. And what we need to do is just like rock back on our heels, settle down for a second and
Yeah.
assess where we're at. But we spend so much time in that trying to get somewhere, achieve something, find some like in that reaching place.
Yeah. Absolutely. And even in nursing, like I try to convey this. Like I try to be a pillar of like not necessarily calm, but just like on the floor of like, yes, there's a lot to do. I try not to say too much. I'm like, oh, I'm very busy, because this goes into our
Oh yeah,
nursing
I
life too.
hate
Like,
that.
oh, there's
Yeah.
so much to do. I'm so busy, and it's like I try to tell people, yeah, and we've got 12 hours to do it, and we're one person, and I'm gonna do my best every time I go to work, but there is only so much I can do safely, and I
Mhm.
need to make sure that I'm going about that in a safe way and a calm way so that I am doing the best that I can, and so I've brought that into my nursing practice with, the learning more about somatics and everything in the last couple of years. And that's changed my nursing practice as well
Oh,
and
I
changing
bet.
how I'm able to like go about the floor. And that's why the workshop has so much end piece about the co-regulation because I notice it like kind of ripple out like, okay, yeah, like, yeah, we only can do so much, and obviously
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
emergencies and there is things that like, yeah, you are moving faster, but you can still only do so much. You
yeah.
can still only do what you're capable of. And that's limiting for nurses because we're our own kind of superheroes and we think we can and should do it all, but no, we are just one person and
Yeah.
can only do what we can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I talk all the time about detachment at work, and I think it rubs some of the newer nurses who are like really committed, like really, really wanting to do good the wrong way, which is okay. They'll get it one day. But I'm like, you have to protect yourself. You have to ask yourself, what can I do right here? Do that. And then after that, you can't do anything else. Cause I got caught up in years so much about that, like just the inequality and the injustices that you see in healthcare sometimes, which I found a way to detach from. I do what I can do. I do the best for people I can. I still struggle sometimes getting angry though. When things happen that shouldn't, it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
get so angry. And that's where I feel like I could definitely be a calmer role model in that way. So I feel like you have such a calm presence. I bet working with you, you're like, people are just feeding
But I
off that.
do
It's
get
awesome.
I wouldn't say I probably don't get angry, but I'm definitely quite assertive and direct as well, which I think people are kind of like, oh, like you did that in a very like interesting way that they like, the doctor listened there and it's like, yeah, well,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'm still gonna advocate hard, I'm not just
Mm-hmm.
gonna let
Well,
things
that's
fall by
part
the
of what can
wayside.
you do. That's the part of what you
Yeah,
have control over.
totally. And so it's like, no, let's do this and this. And like, even just, I remember the other day I said to doctor, okay, well, like they need to know this and that's your job to do, like not
Mm-hmm.
mine. And one of the younger nurses was like, oh my God. I'm like, but it's true. And they know that. Like it's their job to tell them this new diagnosis, not mine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's not in your
and
scope. I love that.
yeah,
I That's the thing I think I do really well at as like so nurses who are listening, you will get this so much, anyone that's still bedside, but like I've been a nurse 10 years, bedside critical care 10 years, and it sounds like you're very, very close, like right in there. Um, and when I started nursing, there were still, I still worked with nurses that had been nurses like 20 years, 30 years. Like
yeah,
they were there. They were in a lot of them, but they were there. And like if I had a problem, I mean, they had different personalities, but I knew who to go to. And nowadays I'm the one of the older nurses. I'm one of the people,
yeah,
which to me is terrifying because there used to be a lot more experience there. But boundaries is something that's so lacking and so important. It's okay to say no. If you don't feel
yeah,
comfortable, immediately stop that process and ask questions. If you have a gut feeling, go with it. And, it's okay to ask more information. If someone's getting defensive with you, you're probably finding a problem, like this is
yeah,
okay. And I think that we're not trained that way. And you go into the world, no one arms you with how to speak up for yourself and stand alone in a world where you're trying to advocate for people. And the system will swallow you up sometimes. So it's so important to show people how to say no and how to get things done using keywords that like people have to listen to. You know what I mean? Not like aggressive stance, but serious words.
yeah, absolutely. And then like, yeah, just what you just said resonated so well. Like we're not taught in nursing school, there's such a big piece missing of like, I feel like all this stuff should be taught, like how to protect your own energy, like boundaries, like all this stuff that we aren't taught. And then you get the new nurses come out and it's like they just want to work and they want to do this. And it's
They
like
have such
it's
good intentions, really.
I know, and it's just a recipe kind of for burnout because then it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of shows your career that like um it does, yeah, it's a projection for your career that you don't say no, you're just saying yes to everything, and then it just kind of comes this cycle. And yeah, and interesting that you say that you're one of the senior nurses now, because yeah, when I started, it's like nurses that have been there 30 years, like the nurses in their 60s and like 65, and now it's like the older nurses are 50, maybe like
Yeah.
40, like they're nobody's really been there 25, 30 years, and it's like where'd everybody go?
And that's where I learned to stand up for myself. To be honest, I've watched some nurses that when a nurses work, they're like twice as long as any of the doctors. They just gain some knowledge that, from experience. And to watch in a situation where everyone's so uncomfortable, and I've seen this over the years so many times pre-COVID, where a nurse stopped what was going on and did the right thing. And it was always someone older because the younger people are, and nowadays, don't get me wrong, the new generation has some spice, and I love that about them because they have changed this industry for us. And thank you, ladies. But before, that's like, man, that's where I learned to do that. That was okay. That's not something that how to say no to. And also, they're mostly men who are used to getting what they want. That it is taught in men to be pushy because that's what people do. It's not like a negative intention from them, but we're raised differently. And their social skills are usually lacking because they just came out of med school. There's so many factors involved.
There's a lot of factors involved there. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So it's great that you're out there like being that role model. I love that because, also like my plan is to ultimately leave bedside, but there's a part of my heart that hurts a little bit about that because there is not very many people left. Not that there's anything wrong with new nurses. You guys are awesome, but you need support,
You need support, and they know that they need support, and a lot of that shifted in COVID, that all of a sudden you're seeing floors being run by all new grads and in charge, and they've been a nurse and travelers. And it's kind of like, whew, this is scary, and I don't know, when I think about leaving bedside, I don't actually think I will leave bedside. Like, I mean, that's the beauty about nursing, is that we can do travel contracts, we can do, we call it casual in Canada, it's per diem in the States, but it's like, we can, do casual. Like right now, I'm kind of in between. We were in Newfoundland for the summer on a travel contract. So I travel with my family. And then now we're back in BC and I'm working casual again at like my local hospital. There's just so many options, right? Like, and that's one thing too that I try to hit home, like on with the whole Zen Nurse Instagram and message to nurses, is like, if you don't like where you are, you can pause. Like, you don't, just because you went to school, like nursing school, doesn't mean that you are stuck in the same job forever. Like, take a per diem job, take a travel job, like mix it up. If you're burnt out where you are, like half that is the bureaucratic bullshit that's going on that, yes, you maybe could change, but that's exhausting if you just want to be like going to work. It's like you can.
No one is going to change the system we have right now from our level. I mean, you can get involved in things that are changing it, but you're not going to change it from work.
So it's like,
you're so right though. Nursing is so versatile. You can have any kind of lifestyle. You can do so many kinds of nursing. There's so much education involved in it.
Yeah. And even just like, you can make your own schedule, like with a per diem or casual job. It's like, I'll work here. I'll work there. Like, and then if you're burnt out with that, you take a 13-week travel contract, take 13 weeks off. It's just like, there's just so many options that if you're like, you're not stuck. That's what I want nurses to know, right? You're not stuck, and like, nurses have the power. We're smart. We're a smart group of folks, and it's like, you can change how you're feeling, you can change your environment, and
yeah, I love that. It's so true. I love that you want to stay in nursing too, because I don't think I'll stay full time. I've always thought like, oh, I'll probably work PRN forever, just because like there is just some of the most golden moments I've had with patients sometimes that like, you can't put words to how awesome it is to like connect with people like that, like you do in nursing. But the work of like the full-time work is something that my body is just like not a futuristic thing for me that's going to work. And I love that viewpoint too, because I think there are a lot of nurses leaving the field, or not leaving the field, but leaving for soft skills and leaving the field. But like for me, when I got very burnt out, I thought I was done with nursing and I was leaving nursing forever. And I was angry and I was bitter and I was mad at nursing. And I was mad at healthcare. And then once I healed, I realized like it was never nursing. Nursing is all like, it is the model I love. I believe in it. I got excited about it for a reason. And there's other ways to do it. We're just like in a system that isn't functioning as well as it should be right now. So It's just beautiful because
Absolutely.
it's okay. You might go back to it and once you heal. It's not always what you think that's going on. Like I don't approach
Yeah.
work the same way I used to. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like the same job since I've gone back. So I had to take 3 months off when I got really, really ill. And I went
Yeah.
once I finally got to the point I could go back. I don't feel like the same person there. And I like that. I feel
Yeah.
much more free. Like I don't feel scared to say what I need. I'm not scared of them firing me either. That's a great thing
Yeah.
about traveling is like I can get another job then. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you
Totally.
move
And then,
around, you build your skill set up to be such a level. You know what I mean? You see so much,
yeah.
you know so much. It really just helps you grow.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Totally. Like when I came back here, I was doing something on the floor and the doctor's like, can you do that on the floor? Or is that critical care? Or I'm like, no, this is something we can do on the floor. And then the nurses on the floor are like, oh, we haven't really done that. I'm like, okay, like I know in the policy we can do this on the floor. And I was doing this at a like travel hospital I was at on the floor. Like I'm comfortable with this. It's in my scope. And it's like, so you bring these new skills to the different
Mhm.
hospitals of like, oh, okay, like so yeah, I like
Yeah.
traveling for
And
that
you see
for
the way
sure.
that different places do that. I love that. So
Yeah.
there's a hospital system I worked for, which I quit traveling for a while and became a traveler for this specific system. And they were so smart. They used that program because it was like literally to all their hospitals and it's a giant system. But they used that system to make the hospital more cohesive and find issues and what's working well on these units. And they took because you had to have quite a bit of experience to be the ICU travel nurses there. And once
Yeah.
you got that job, they sat down with these nurses and they were like, what's working, what's not working places. And there was no punitive involved. It was like they were going to make
Yeah.
the system better. And I was like, man, that's the best way
Amazing.
to do it because they're the ones in there finding the mistakes, seeing it
Totally.
firsthand. So there's
Yeah.
so much in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so smart. Nurses are so awesome. I love anyway, well, Amanda, I'm so glad you have joined us and sharing all of this with us. I always ask everyone, what is your what is your go-to self-care when like things are awful and what is the practice that you go to?
You can probably guess.
I can,
Somatic.
but I'm like, is it a specific one? And I wonder,
uh,
or yeah.
Somatic exercises, and it honestly just depends how I'm feeling. Like if it's like a grief feeling, if it's an anxiety feeling, if it's like a rushy feeling, if I'm just down, like it just depends how I'm feeling. If I'll do more rocking movement, if I'll do more flowing movement. Yeah, it just kind of depends. But
So
somatic
how
exercises.
would I love that you said that because I didn't even know that but it makes sense now that you said that. There's probably different movements tied to different emotions.
Definitely.
So
And it just depends like where you're holding those emotions in tension. Like your psoas muscle, which is like the big muscle that runs down your back from your T12 to your greater trochanter. And that muscle cannot be like it's your muscle that it tenses up when you've like been in fight or flight. And it will not release itself unless you do movements to help release it. So if it's
mm.
been really intense, like if I've had those feelings at work, I'll be doing exercises to help release that, which is like a pelvic tilt exercise to help release that muscle. And so the different things like that, we hold a lot of trauma in our hips. I'll do more hip circles if I'm feeling like that they're feeling really tight and I'm holding things there. And so yeah, every different movements can help different things and also just what it helps for different people. Like I know what movements help me when I'm feeling a certain way. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Did you know your triggers and what boils up for you, which I assume people learn as they start to get into this?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
As you start noticing your body.
Yeah, which is hard. I think I've said this on here
It
before,
is.
but the first time someone asked me like, where do you feel that emotion? I I was like looked at them cross-eyed. I'm like, what are you? Nobody feels their emotion in there. I'm like, what are you like? I just thought that was so
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Because I was so like
Yeah.
overwhelmed by it. Now after working on it for years, I know exactly what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
But
Feel our
sometimes it takes
emotions.
time to get in there.
Oh, it takes a lot of time. And it takes a lot of time to like take the time to notice your body and notice that like just noticing will actually help you with regulating. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it all just yeah, it takes time when somebody hears about these practices to become open enough to it to be able to try it. Like yeah, and just know there is science behind it. There is like studies on holding trauma in the body and how our body does hold that.
Have you read that book, The Body Keeps the Score?
Yes, absolutely.
I was like, it's been recommended a lot. I love that book.
It's a really intense book. I find that book really intense, and there's just so many good pieces in it. Another really good one is When the Body Says No by Dr. Gabor Mate. And that's about like chronic stress and how we hold it in the body. And yeah, he's an MD in Canada, and he has a lot of really great work, but that book really attunes to this kind of work I'm doing. And he's curious about it, right? Gets curious about his own habits and how he holds chronic stress and just even like habitual patterns that we have from like childhood and what we do. And it's all just so interesting learning all this stuff.
So cool. Yeah. Well, Amanda is, what is it? The Zen Nurse on Instagram? Yeah, so is that just Zen Nurse, right?
Zen.nurse.
Zen.nurse on Instagram.
Yeah.
Where else can we find you?
That's the best place to find me right now, is just on the Instagram channel. And then I do have the link in my bio is to sign up for to become an email subscriber. And email subscribers are the first to hear about workshops. They'll be the first to hear about the course drop with a little discount code in there. So I do have another workshop that I'm planning for March that I'm going to announce to my subscribers tonight. Or not tonight, because this is March 17th, but that's the best place. So the best place to hear about all that is to sign up as an email subscriber.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Hi fans, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Also share it with any women in your life who you think would enjoy it or need the extra support. If you have a story or you know someone that has a story that you think would be great on the podcast, you can submit those entries through my website. It is www.themoonflowercoachingcollective.com. That website, you can find most of my offerings. So currently, I have a free support group for women struggling with stress, burnout, and women's issues. You can find the link there. It is amazing community of women. So if you're needing a little additional support for free, join that community. I also am offering 2 free workshops a month. So every month I do around the new moon an energy block clearing workshop, new moon workshop. So if that's something you're interested in, you can find that information on my website. And also we're starting a chakra clearing series that will align with my current program. So the chakra series is completely free. March will be an intro to the chakras, and then April we'll start working our way with the root chakra, and we'll work our way all the way to the crown, and then end with a full chakra alignment. So very exciting stuff. You can find those links on my website. And then my most exciting offer right now is if you're needing a little more support, you need a little more one-on-one attention, my coaching program is kicking off April 1st. You can sign up anytime now through April 1st to get a little jump start on it. It is one-on-one coaching for 6 months through burnout. It takes you through 7 proven steps to heal from burnout. It includes group coaching and will align with the chakra aligning series. So if that's something you're interested in, you can find that as well on my website, which again is www.themoonflowercollective.com. So check that out. And yeah, if you have any feedback or want to comment on the show notes, reach out. I would absolutely love that. You can support the show by buying me a cup of coffee. It really helps with editing and all the extra things that are involved. Since I do a lot of things for free, it is greatly appreciated. So yeah, thank you. Can't wait to see you on the next episode.